The sky hung low and gray over the Western Front, as if even the heavens were weary of war. The year was 1916, the middle of the Great War. Mud, blood, and smoke blended into a colorless wasteland where men lived, fought, and died, often within the same hour. The battlefield was not just a place, it was a living machine of destruction that devoured everything in its path. Among the thousands who fought in that nightmare stood one man whose story would defy every expectation. A soldier who would be struck by more than 40 bullets and yet, against all reason, refused to die. His name has been whispered across generations as a symbol of impossible survival. The morning began like many others in the trenches, cold, wet, and heavy with fear. The air was thick with the stench of gunpowder and rot. Rats scurried over sleeping men, feeding on crumbs and sometimes on corpses. Soldiers stared silently at the horizon, knowing that the next command could be their last. And then, it began. The first shell landed with a sound that shook the ground and hearts alike. Dirt erupted like a volcano, and screams followed seconds later. The order to advance was given, and men climbed out of the trenches into the open, into hell itself. Machine guns roared from the enemy line, slicing through the air with the rhythm of death. Within minutes, hundreds fell, and the mud was painted red. Our soldier, young, resolute, and terrified, moved forward. His hands trembled, his breath caught, but his will held firm. Each step was a gamble with fate. The first bullet struck his shoulder, spinning him sideways. Pain tore through him, but he pressed on. The second ripped through his leg. The third grazed his neck. He stumbled but refused to fall. It was as if death itself had taken an interest in him. 40 bullets would find his flesh that day. Some tore through muscle, some shattered bone, and some lodged deep inside. Yet somehow, impossibly, he kept moving. Around him, the world disintegrated into chaos. Men cried out for mothers they would never see again. Medics shouted orders, artillery boomed without pause, and the air vibrated with terror. Through the smoke and screams, he crawled, dragging himself inch by inch, each movement fueled by the most primal of instincts, to live. Every few seconds, a bullet struck him again. His comrades, watching in disbelief, later said it looked like the man had become a ghost already, a figure covered in mud and blood, refusing to fall no matter how many times he was hit. And here, bro, imagine the voiceover slows down, the silence between explosions almost sacred. At that moment, on that broken ground, the human spirit stood taller than any army. As he crawled, the sky darkened further, clouds gathering as if mourning the fallen. He reached a crater, collapsed, and looked upward, the only view left for a dying man. But he wasn't dying. Not yet. Somewhere deep inside, something refused to surrender. Viewers, pause for a moment. What do you think it takes for a man to survive 40 gunshots in a single battle? Is it fate, willpower, or something beyond human comprehension? Comment below. Your thoughts might reveal how you see courage itself. Hours passed. The battlefield shifted. Waves of attack and retreat swept over the same patch of cursed land. Bodies piled in the mud. He lay among them, breathing shallowly, pretending to be dead when enemy patrols passed. Each breath was agony, each heartbeat a small rebellion against the impossible. Then came the gas. Mustard gas drifted across the field, yellow clouds that burned skin, eyes, and lungs. Soldiers screamed, clawing at their faces, choking on their own blood. He tore at his uniform, trying to cover his mouth with fabric, anything to stay alive a little longer. By nightfall, the firing slowed. Rain began to fall, soft, cold, cleansing nothing. The soldier crawled again, guided only by instinct. The pain was overwhelming, but his mind had entered a strange clarity. When a man has nothing left to lose, even agony becomes background noise. Hours turned into an eternity. When he finally reached the edge of his trench, he collapsed face first into the mud. The medics who found him thought he was dead. But when one touched his neck, there was a faint pulse. They carried him to a field hospital, a place that smelled of blood, iodine, and despair. Doctors counted 40 bullet wounds. He should not be alive, one whispered. No one should survive this. But he did. Surgeons worked through the night, removing bullets, sewing torn flesh, and praying he wouldn't die on their table. He hovered between life and death for days. Fever raged. Infection threatened. But the will that kept him crawling through hell refused to let go. Weeks later, against every prediction, he opened his eyes. The nurse who saw him screamed, not in fear, but disbelief. The man who had been written off by death had returned. His recovery was slow and brutal. He learned to breathe without pain, to move fingers, to sit up. Each small victory was a battle. His body was a map of scars, each one a reminder of a bullet that had failed to end him. Word spread quickly through the camps. Soldiers whispered his name in awe. They called him, the man who refused to die. Even officers came to see him, not as a patient, but as a living miracle. And yet, despite the attention, he remained humble. When asked how he survived, he simply said, "I just wanted to go home." That line would echo through time, a truth that transcended heroism. Because in the end, every soldier, no matter how brave, just wanted to live, to see the sun again, to feel normal life once more. Years later, historians pieced together his story through reports and witness statements. They confirmed that he had indeed been struck more than 40 times. Some bullets missed vital organs by millimeters, others passed clean through. The odds of survival were 1 in millions. He became a symbol of resilience. Newspapers across Europe called him the immortal soldier. Veterans spoke his name like a legend, proof that even in war's darkest hours, something stronger than fear existed. But the story doesn't end on the battlefield. When he returned home after the war, his village treated him as a hero. Yet he carried with him the silent weight of those who didn't return. Every night, he heard the echoes, the gunfire, the screams, the ghosts of men who fought beside him. He planted a small garden behind his house. Some say he would spend hours staring at it, silent, as if each flower was a grave for a fallen comrade. He lived quietly, never boasting, never reliving the glory others attributed to him. When asked about his 40-bullet wounds, he would smile faintly and say, "It wasn't courage. It was just not my time." Imagine this, bro. The narrator's voice softens, the music fades to a gentle hum, and the camera pans over a reconstructed trench, now covered in grass and silence. That's where the story truly lands. Because this isn't just about a man who survived 40 bullets. It's about what survival means when the world collapses around you. It's about how courage isn't loud or glorious, sometimes it's quiet, stubborn, and drenched in mud. And as the closing line, bro, you'll love this. His story reminds us that war takes everything, but it can't take the will to live. And in that, the human spirit proves indestructible. If you were in his place, what would you have done? Fall forward? Or surrender to the mud? Comment below. Your thoughts matter because history isn't just what happened, it's how we remember it.